This video series is brought to you by the ASU Writing Center within the Academic Support Network. Thank you for joining me as we discuss Part 2 of Avoiding Patchwork Paraphrasing. This video, our second in the series, will discuss patchwork paraphrasing. Let's get started. Let's review again what paraphrasing is not. Paraphrasing is not taking someone else's words and changing it enough to make them yours. It's about starting with a blank page and writing the information in your words. What Bailey describes as taking someone else's words and changing it enough is called patchwork paraphrasing. Patchwork paraphrasing occurs when writers start with someone else's writing and change individual words and phrases to make it sound more original. So what's the problem? Patchwork paraphrasing, even with citations, is considered academically dishonest. Patchwork paraphrasing does not demonstrate your understanding of the quote or idea. It also does not help you to express your own ideas. And finally, it does not lead to a coherent voice and tone in writing. Let's take a look at an example together. Here's the original quote. In schools, plagiarism carries with it severe penalties, including potential expulsion. Outside the classroom, being marked as a plagiarist, especially in a public way, is a permanent stain on one's career. Though some careers move past it, the cloud is always there. Here's the patchwork paraphrase. Plagiarism comes with severe penalties in schools, even potentially expulsion. Being called a plagiarist outside of school can be a permanent black mark for your career, especially if you're called out publicly. The dark cloud of plagiarism stays with you, even if your career moves on from it. And here's the proper paraphrase. The impact of being caught plagiarizing is far-reaching, beyond the bounds of school and the classroom. Plagiarizing in one's professional life can have even greater and more permanent consequences. Once a plagiarist, always a plagiarist. Notice how the patchwork paraphrase essentially says the same thing in the same way Bailey said it, changing a few words and using synonyms, swapping phrases around, etc. If we look at the first sentence of the original and patchwork paraphrase, it is essentially the same sentence, but the structure is flipped. They also use the same phrase, severe penalties. The proper paraphrase shows a greater understanding of Bailey's point, focusing on the consequences beyond the classroom. Let's look at another example together. Here's the original quote. Simply put, avoiding plagiarism, isn't about adding a new tool to your arsenal. It's about changing the way you write. If you write with care and are proactive in your approach to dealing with outside content, you don't need a plagiarism checker or a paraphrasing tool. Let's take a look at the patchwork paraphrase. Actually avoiding plagiarism, to put it simply, means changing the way you write, not just adding a new tool to your tool belt. You don't need a new tool like a plagiarism checker or a paraphraser if you take care while writing and deal with outside content proactively. Finally, let's take a look at the proper paraphrase. Fancy online tools won't ultimately help you if you don't change how you write. You need to make sure you are using outside content thoughtfully and intentionally as a writer, and attributing ideas that are not your own. Notice again how the patchwork paraphrase essentially says the same thing in the same way Bailey said it. In looking at the end of the first sentence, starting with isn't about adding a new tool to your arsenal, it's about changing the way you write. The patchwork paraphrase says exactly the same thing, but the structure is just flipped. Instead, it says, means changing the way you write, not just adding a new tool to your tool belt. The proper paraphrase shows a greater understanding of Bailey's point and is in a different voice than Bailey's voice. When taking notes on a source, write down points and ideas in your own words. Mark direct quotes you feel are impactful or you might want to use, but don't copy them directly into your notes or your drafting document. This also minimizes the chance of accidental plagiarism. When drafting, put the source away and try to restate the idea in your own words. Then compare it to the original source to be sure you have captured the author's intended meaning, but also to make sure it doesn't just mirror the original source. Use specific verb attributions to convey the intent of the author. Examples of this includes adds, argues, affirms, admits, declares, insists, mentions, proposes, reports, reveals, suggests, thinks. Don't paraphrase in isolation. Tell readers why that piece of evidence is important to your point, how it relates to what other sources have to say about the topic, and what readers should pay the most attention to. If you have questions about anything we covered in this video, our online study hub is a great place to post questions and get a tutor or peer response. If you would like to continue learning about patchwork paraphrasing, see this online resource on patchwork versus paraphrasing, which can be found at the bottom link. Thank you for joining us to discuss Avoid Patchwork Paraphrasing, and we hope to see you in our next segment, Avoid Plagiarism in Paraphrasing. Thank you.